Imagine this. You go to the doctor expecting a standard prescription, and they recommend putting leeches on your skin. It sounds like a scene from a medieval movie, but believe it or not, this and many other bizarre therapies have been tested, dismissed, forgotten, and then rediscovered by modern science with proof that they actually work. Surreal, right? Today we're diving into some of the strangest medical practices that, against all odds, have proven effective. No boring lectures or complicated terms here. We're going to share stories of discoveries that sound like jokes but have saved thousands of lives. It's fascinating to think about how, throughout history, medicine has swung between genius and weirdness. Behind every curious treatment lies a captivating detail, a mix of folk tradition, scientific experimentation, and of course, a lot of chance. After all, who would have thought that a moldy fungus in a lab dish would lead to penicillin? Or that maggots, yes, those things you avoid even looking at, could be powerful healing agents? And if I told you that some of these techniques, which seem straight out of witchcraft, are still used in modern hospitals? Yep, the shock is real. But don't worry, because each case comes with a surprising scientific explanation. Get ready to discover therapies that defy common sense, ranging from gross to genius. By the end, you'll be wondering, will people one day laugh at the treatments we use today? So stick with me, because what's coming next will leave you speechless. Picture this. You have a deep, infected wound, and the doctor looks at you and says, "Let's put maggots in there." Sounds like torture, but surprisingly, it's a treatment. So-called larval therapy has been used for centuries, especially on battlefields. Severely injured soldiers noticed something curious. When flies laid eggs in their wounds, the dead tissue was consumed, but the healthy tissue remained untouched. And even more incredible, the healing seemed faster. For a long time, this was dismissed as superstition or a desperate measure. I mean, who in their right mind would agree to raise critters inside their body? But in the 20th century, with advances in microbiology, scientists confirmed what the ancients had observed. Maggots produce enzymes that dissolve only necrotic tissue while releasing natural antibacterial substances. The result? Clean wounds ready to heal. Today, in modern hospitals, there are still cases where medicine turns to this method. When antibiotics fail or surgeries are too risky, doctors use sterile maggots, specially bred in labs, to save patients. It's like nature created a tiny biological janitor for our skin. Now think about it. If even gross maggots have earned respect in healthcare, what other bizarre practices might hold valuable secrets? Get ready, because the next therapy involves fire. Yes, fire. Take a deep breath. Have you ever heard of moxibustion? It's an ancient Chinese medicine technique that, at first glance, seems almost dangerous. It involves burning an herb called mugwort close to the patient's skin, usually near acupuncture points. The idea is to stimulate the flow of vital energy. But hold on, we're not talking about magic. For a long time, Western medicine viewed this with suspicion, almost like an esoteric ritual. I mean, what sense does it make to bring fire close to someone to cure diseases? But here's the surprising part. Recent studies have proven that moxibustion can indeed have tangible effects on the human body. One of the most intriguing cases is in treating breech babies, when a baby is positioned sitting in the womb instead of head down, ready for birth. Several hospitals have tested the technique and found that, when applied to the right point, moxibustion increases the baby's movement and, in many cases, helps them turn to the correct position. The result? Fewer unnecessary C-sections. It's as if an ancient practice, once dismissed as superstition, found scientific validation centuries later. And it doesn't stop there. Research is also exploring its potential to relieve chronic pain and improve blood circulation. Picture this: a treatment involving fire and smoke in a modern hospital room. Surreal, but true. But if fire already sounds strange, wait until you hear about the therapy that uses leeches. Here they come. The dreaded leeches. Just hearing the name gives you the creeps, right? But believe it or not, these slimy, blood-sucking critters are still allies of modern medicine. It sounds unbelievable, but top hospitals around the world use what's called hirudotherapy. The practice isn't new. Back in ancient Egypt, Doctors used leeches to treat everything from headaches to excess blood in the body, following the old theory of humors. For centuries, this method was overused and, of course, often without basis. But with advances in medicine, it turned out leeches weren't just a bizarre fad. They have powerful biological tricks. In their saliva, there's a substance called hirudin, which prevents blood clotting. This means that when used in reconstructive surgeries or skin and finger transplants, leeches help maintain steady blood flow, preventing tissue necrosis. In other words, they literally save body parts from dying. Today, specialized doctors commonly use leeches raised in controlled, infection-free environments. Sure, it's not a pleasant sight, but the results are impressive. Now think about it. If even a blood-sucking monster can become a medical hero, what else might be hiding in the weird practices of the past? Hold on tight, because the next one involves electricity. Picture this. You're in a doctor's office, and they suggest running an electric current through your brain. Sounds insane, right? But that's the basis of electroconvulsive therapy, better known as ECT. For a long time, this treatment was portrayed in a grim light in movies and TV shows like some modern medieval torture. But in practice, science has shown it can be a valuable tool. Electroconvulsive therapy began in the 20th century to treat severe mental disorders like profound depression and schizophrenia. The idea was simple yet terrifying. Apply controlled electric shocks to trigger a brief seizure in the brain. Behind this shocking image, doctors noticed that many patients improved dramatically, especially when no other treatment worked. Over time, the method was refined. Today, it's performed under anesthesia, with monitoring and much lower energy doses. None of that cinematic horror. And the results remain astonishing. For people with treatment-resistant depression, ECT can literally be the difference between life and death. It's curious to think how something so culturally stigmatized has become a respected tool in modern psychiatry. It sounds like fiction, but it's science. And if you thought using electricity to heal the mind was strange, brace yourself. The next treatment involves something even more absurd: human feces. Hold on to your hat. There's a medical treatment that basically involves a fecal transplant. Yes, you heard that right. Officially called fecal microbiota transplantation, it's considered one of the biggest recent revolutions in medicine. Here's how it works. Our gut is home to trillions of bacteria that form what's called the microbiota. When this ecosystem gets out of balance, often due to overuse of antibiotics, serious conditions can arise, like infections caused by Clostridium difficile, a bacterium that causes severe diarrhea and even life-threatening risks. And here's the bizarre part. Scientists discovered the solution might lie in the feces of healthy people. By transplanting this microbiota into the sick patient's gut, the balance is restored and intestinal health returns to normal. Success rates are staggering, reaching over 90% in some cases. Of course, the process is done safely, in laboratories, and usually via capsules or enemas. But just thinking that such an effective remedy originates from something everyone avoids even mentioning is enough to leave anyone speechless. Now imagine, if even what we throw away can save lives, what about other unexpected elements from our body? Well, the next therapy involves reptile saliva. Now, think about it. Who would say that a reptile's saliva could save human lives? That's exactly what happens with the Gila monster, a venomous lizard that lives in the deserts of Mexico and the United States. It may look threatening, but within its saliva lies a true treasure for modern medicine. This animal produces a compound called exenatide, which mimics the action of a human hormone responsible for regulating blood sugar levels. In other words, scientists managed to turn this venom into a powerful medication against type 2 diabetes. Today, millions of people around the world use drugs derived from this substance to control the disease. And think about the irony. Something that originally could cause pain and even risk to anyone who approached this lizard ended up becoming an essential ally for health. It's as if nature hid little secrets in places where no one would want to look. Moreover, the discovery opened doors for new research on using animal toxins as a basis for medications. What once seemed merely dangerous is now seen as a gold mine for pharmacology. In other words, even a lizard's bite can turn into hope for millions of people. Incredible, right? But it's not over yet. If venoms have become cures, imagine what can happen when we talk about viruses. Imagine hearing this. We're going to treat you with viruses. It sounds like a bad joke, especially after everything the world has gone through with pandemics. But believe it, there's a technique called phage therapy, where viruses are used as true heroes against resistant bacteria. It works like this. Phages are viruses that attack bacteria exclusively. They infiltrate them, multiply, and end up destroying the enemy from the inside out. For us humans, they're harmless. And the most incredible detail, while antibiotics are losing strength against increasingly resistant superbugs, phages can adapt, evolving along with them. This idea isn't new. At the beginning of the 20th century, scientists were already experimenting with using these viruses to treat infections. But with the popularization of penicillin and other antibiotics, the technique fell into oblivion. It was only in recent decades, facing the global threat of bacterial resistance, that phages returned to the spotlight of science. Today, there are already documented cases of critically ill patients, unresponsive to any antibiotics, who were saved thanks to experimental phage therapies. It's like we've found a microscopic army of hunters programmed by nature itself. Now think, if even viruses can be used to save us, what else can medicine turn into a cure? The next stop involves something you'd never imagine: therapy with extreme cold. Now get ready, because the next therapy involves nothing less than extreme cold. Yes, we're talking about cryotherapy, more commonly known as ice therapy. And it's not just rubbing an ice cube on your skin, no. We're talking about entire chambers that expose the body to temperatures reaching below minus 150 degrees Celsius for a few minutes. It sounds insane, but it works. The idea emerged as an alternative for treating chronic pain, inflammation, and even aiding muscle recovery. Elite athletes, for example, have been fans of the technique for years. The thermal shock makes the body react by releasing endorphins, improving circulation, and reducing inflammatory processes. It's like pressing a reset button on the body, and it doesn't stop there. Research suggests that cryotherapy can also have positive effects on mood, helping combat anxiety and even mild depression. That's because exposure to intense cold stimulates brain areas linked to well-being. Imagine stepping into a freezing chamber, enduring a few minutes that feel otherworldly, and coming out feeling renewed. It sounds like Viking torture, but it's increasingly present in modern clinics. The most curious thing is thinking that something as simple and primitive as cold can have such powerful effects on the human body. And to wrap up our journey through the strangest therapies, let's talk about a technique that seems straight out of a sci-fi movie: using virtual reality to treat phobias and traumas. Imagine overcoming a fear without ever leaving a room. It sounds like magic, but it's pure science. We're talking about virtual reality as therapy, one of the most incredible and unexpected innovations in modern medicine. It works like this. With virtual reality glasses, patients are exposed in a controlled way to situations that trigger anxiety or phobias. Someone afraid of heights, for example, can climb a skyscraper without ever leaving the clinic. Gradually, the brain gets used to the stimulus, and the fear loses its power. It's like mental training, but with digital scenarios. But it doesn't stop there. This technology is already being used in treating post-war traumas, relieving pain in burn patients, and even helping people in physical rehabilitation processes. It's the perfect union of science and technology to turn something scary into a healing tool. Now think about it. Maggots, leeches, feces, fire, cold, and even virtual reality. All these practices, no matter how strange they seem, have one thing in common. They show that medicine is capable of turning the improbable into a solution. What shocks us today could be the standard tomorrow. And here's the provocation. Will people in 100 years look at our current medications and surgeries the way we look at leeches? Tell me in the comments, which of these therapies did you find the most unbelievable? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because here we always bring stories that seem impossible, but science guarantees are real.